The Novelist, a novella by L. Barkat, from T.S. Poetry Press. Chapter 5. Megan had been playfully bothering her for a while now. You should write a novel. Where Megan had cooked up such a wild idea was beyond Laura. After all, their relationship had been conducted mostly by Twitter, a pastime that was all tea business for Megan and all pleasurable escape for Laura. You couldn't know enough about a person through a series of text boxes that held 140 characters or less to make a judgment like, you should write a novel. Megan had lost her mind. Laura closed the wooden drawer with a shove and turned her back to the granite countertop. Leaning back, she tried to mentally retrace the tea basket's possible steps to non-arrival. Tracing steps, following set paths, was something Laura was both all too good at and not good at in the least. When it came to life, she had more than tried the formulas, attempted to follow the right paths, but life had been stacked against her. This was why she knew she'd never really had a chance at going to Yale. Yale was money and the right clothes. It was your mother knowing how to teach you the secrets of upper-class hair and makeup. It was the string of pearls and the genteel laugh. But as Geoffrey had once said, Laura was a gypsy. He said it teasingly, and she had written him a poem about it, complete with palatial reference to a foreign country, maybe to prove she was not really a gypsy or its equivalent, a girl who had somehow broken free of her roots as white trash and was making an impressive living, moving words around for baby wipes companies, or the makers of Christmas tree air fresheners, or even the big drug companies, promoting the next Aleve. The poem was called, not surprisingly, Gypsy, and it had gone like this. Don't say I didn't warn you about the rosemary. She will hold it out to you as you walk past this little shop to the left, the one where they are selling postcards of the Alhambra at sunset. Always at sunset, when the arches and curves and the multilingual history looks best. Don't say you didn't want it. The rosemary and the way she will look into your palm, into your tea, tell you everything she sees. Right now, if there was a gypsy in Laura's life, it was not Laura at all. It was Megan. Laura had accepted the rosemary from her, so to speak, or maybe the golden tippies, and Megan was looking straight into her heart with this request for a novel. It was unsettling. Almost unsettling enough to qualify as door number 1 if someone had wanted to make a novel of Laura's life. Door number 1 was a neat writing organization trick that James Scott Bell had discussed in Plot and Structure. It was how you were supposed to get from the beginning to the middle of the novel, from Act 1 to Act 2, there being 3 acts altogether. Bell had even included a chart and some clip art to illustrate the concept that in the end was quite simple. The main character must be booted through the doorway into the great unknown, or the novel would get boring. Laura thought Bell would have a few things to say to Pynchon, and Laura had a few things to say to Bell, like, how the hell was a writer supposed to know when she was 1/5 through her novel writing so she could cut a door into the wall and shove her character out into the forest? It was all too calculated for Laura, like a sonnet with its own version of fifths. She had tried to work with the sonnet because it seemed like a poet's badge of honor, a form that would place you shoulder to shoulder with the big boys, Yeats and Keats and Shakespeare. Or was Shakespeare, whose origins were questionable, really a girl? It didn't matter. The world thought Shakespeare was a man, and Laura could not write in his form. She had tried over and over again to conquer the sonnet, even sharing a fun poem called She with Geoffrey, in which she, Laura, was both herself and Petrarch's and maybe Geoffrey's muse. Leave the sonnets to the big boys, Geoffrey had said. I prefer my little Basho. Then he had leaned forward and put his hand under her shirt and whispered a date and the name and location of the next hotel. In a fleeting way, this moment had made her feel like a low-class writing whore. But she ignored the pang and made a mental note to add the hotel information to her calendar. So the problem with door number 1 was, to Laura's mind, a problem of calculation and formula, neither of which she seemed to grasp when it came to a creative process like novel writing. She wondered vaguely how Mary Shelley had ever got on without Belle, writing her masterpiece by age 19. And apparently others had wondered this too. Not so much about Belle, but about Mary's ability to craft a success so young, and that after her feminist mother had died within 10 days of Mary's birth, it shouldn't have been possible. And thus many believed the novel was actually her husband, Percy's. But the novel was hers. And perhaps she had got on without Belle because she had sat around her father's place with, yes, the philosophical big boys, having tea and discussing a whole different set of big ideas besides door number 1 and 2 and 3 acts. Did Mary drink loose tea? And if so, what had she used to contain it? Maybe Laura would research that sometime. But for today, she had a different task at hand. Either find the lost tea basket or create a makeshift sifter of leaves.